Welcome back to another Jazz basketball breakdown. It's been just about a month since our last video. We took a little bit of time off with the way the season was winding down.
Well, it kind of hit a point where it was just like, let's see what the young guys are doing. We've obviously moved on some of the more veteran players and resting a lot of the,
Right.
injury time or whatever with the rest. And so it became very repetitive.
Yeah.
We were talking about over and over and over. So good time for a break and a good time to kind of watch kind of from a 30,000 foot view over a month's time and see how the youngsters finish the season.
Yeah, and obviously this last game we ended up losing, which was important.
Needed to lose because we'd started winning games, which is nice, but
overall this season, I'm super excited for what kind of the future holds for our young players. Keontae George has kind of had his ups and downs throughout the season, but man, that kid could be special.
and he started to cook tonight for sure. That third quarter, you could tell. I mean, he had a little pep in his step tonight, and in the way that he was kind of bouncing around making his shots was
And when he plays with that kind of confidence, he starts to really facilitate and stuff and everything like that. He starts to play so much better. It was really good to see him end on such a high note.
That's true. That's important.
As well as Taylor Hendricks ended on a very high note. I mean, he had 16 and 8, 18 and 8 tonight. Shot well from 3-point line, had like 3 steals.
Had a block, kind of doing his stuff, and like they mentioned in the game, we looked at it afterwards just to make sure. Ends the season shooting 37.5% from 3 on the season,
which from your stretch 4, that's great.
You'll take that, and we see fantastic rebounding, unbelievable abilities on defense with the blocks and the steals, and I expect him to have a strong offseason to come back. We've already seen the body kind of change somewhat this year, which is hard to do in a season, so that'll be fun to see him come back this next year, as well as Keontae, because Keontae will be in the gym rat.
Yes, we need Keontae to work out with Sensabaugh. Let Sensabaugh lean down a little bit, get a little bit more athletic, but still have the strength that he shows on there. And that dude could be a serious kind of 6-man weapon.
And so we hope that Sensabaugh has an off season with no surgeries, right?
Yep.
Or at least nothing really invasive.
And that's an important thing, right? He goes an entire season playing a lot in the G League and then ends playing a lot in the NBA. And your biggest concern with him and why he dropped so much in the draft was his injury history. So to go through his full rookie season without really any scares or anything like that,
and then get him a full off season of working out. I mean, it's that year between, when you go through the draft, you really don't have any time off, and if you have ailments, you really come in behind the rest of the rookies that come in that year. So if he can get a good off season, strengthen up even more, get that body healthy, lean down somewhat, like we said, that's part of his thickness, is part of his superpower. But we look at it overall on the rookie class and the drafting that we did.
We did
pretty good. So it's Keontae has a chance to be all-star level.
Yeah.
He has a chance. Taylor Hendricks has a chance to be a very strong two-way player
and
defender,
and an all defensive ability.
Yeah, and it feels like Sensabaugh could very easily step in and be a 6-man off the bench, scorer, get you a bucket when you need, just effortless offensive abilities.
Yeah, and the last 5 games or so, right, he really starts to settle in, starts to feel a lot more confident. He's taking a little bit more risks with certain shots and stuff like that as he starts to feel his game come back. And you even mentioned during the game, like, he's joking around a lot more. He seems to always, he started to really seem to have just like, didn't ever seem sped up. And even tonight, they no matter who they threw at him, he just kind of casually went through almost like going through the motions, but it's because it looks so easy to him on the offensive side of court.
His ball handling, the way that he can create space kind of either way, get physical when he needs to, popping people off of him. That's those are some really nice skill sets to have as a rookie already. That's not something that he's working into. He's like it looks like he just effortlessly does it.
Right.
Which is great to have. So there's a chance that we hit on all 3 rookies,
which doesn't happen.
You're really, the odds are very much against you.
Yeah.
And even if you have 3 lottery picks of hitting on all 3, so if that's something that we did, I mean, fantastic. We've got 3 more draft picks coming up into June, right? We'll see where that first pick is. Right now we're sitting in the 8th spot, which is why it was so key to lose this game.
Yes.
We needed to. So we'll see where that happens. It became obvious in the last few games of the season that Kenneth Lofton Jr.
Dude
is making an impact. I mean, we had to get his butt off the court tonight.
So
he was going to win the game.
The fourth quarter, we're getting run off the court, and it was just all of a sudden he was like, "I got this. I'm going to run point. Get out of my way." And it was just a little couple of hesitations, no look, bounce pass, layup, drive, kick, wide open 3, kind of a little hesitation, Euro, lay. It was like. Timeout. Kenny Lofton, go sit down.
Exactly.
Go sit down.
All of a sudden, Will Hardy's looking across the street, and the court, and Ryan Smith is over there in the corner. Just be like, "You got a job to do here." And he's like, "Okay, you're Evan Samanich. Get in there. Let's close this down."
Kara Lewis.
Yeah.
It was that was fun to see. I mean, that dude could be a serious bench piece for us.
And I mean. He's explosive. You can see that he kind of glides when he runs. His shape, he shouldn't. If he can kind of get some of the body a little bit more tuned in, I mean, he's another person who I think that his beef and his strength is a part of what makes him him, right? So, but his playmaking is beyond what I thought it was. And we knew he was a skilled offensive player. He kind of takes up some of the space that the Canadian
Olynyk,
the Kelly Olynyk, kind of that bigger playmaker that kind of went left with him. Very surprising.
And you could even see it's in the Clippers game. Keontae gets some run with Lofton on the court, and they start running pick and roll together, and Keontae starts to look a lot more calmed down and stuff like that. So him off the bench could be. I mean, he's 21. We looked up. That's huge going into, as this rebuild happens, to get players like him and Bazley, who's still super young. Who,
right.
We talked about that we could end up having a bench unit. Let's say, who knows what happens this offseason. But, you look at, there's been lots of discussions that there's a possible big trade in the works. And, you trade, Clarkson and Sexton, let's say, for a stud next to Keontae at the 2. I don't know who that is. Is that DeJounte Murray? Is that Danny Advia? Who started to really put up numbers down the stretch, and another facilitator next to Keontae George, I think would be really helpful.
Looked at the possibility of possibly out of New Orleans, Herb Jones.
Herb Jones, yes, because he's gonna probably be the guy they move with all the guys they need to pay.
Right.
So you start looking at that, and then when that happens, you start wondering who your bench pieces are. And a bench unit of Chris Dunn, Bryce Sensabaugh, Darius Bazley, Kenny Lofton, and Walker Kessler is a pretty strong bench unit. I mean, Kenny Lofton's shown what he can do offensively off the bench, and that Olynyk role, but even more than that, because he's such a skilled scorer. And then Sensabaugh's offensive ability matched with Chris Dunn, Darius Bazley, and Walker Kessler's defense to kind of make up for any defensive weaknesses that Lofton and Sensabaugh have. That's a really strong, balanced.
That could be fun.
Backup 5, because they balance each other so well of offense and defense.
And you've got so many of them on league minimums or rookie contracts, or, I mean, Bazley and Kenneth Lofton Jr. are on 3-year non-guaranteeds, and
whatever we
end
up probably, if let's say that's our backup 5, our highest paid bench player is probably Chris Dunn.
Right.
I'd be blown away if we don't re-sign him and pay him. Which that was the whole reason why we traded Fontecchio, was the discussion. And so he probably ends up being our highest paid bench player.
And it gives you the flexibility in the cap space to pick up a bigger name trade. It wouldn't be a free agent, right? It would be kind of a trade and make those numbers work. And it's they talk about how clean the Utah Jazz books are. I think these are moves that even in that direction even more. So
Yeah,
so that'll be a
I'd be
fun
shocked
offseason.
if we really don't see something this offseason. We've made too many steps in the direction of making some sort of kind of splashy play this offseason.
It would make sense, and it feels like if we can make a move like that, we are then past the steps of trade deadline moves to kind of tank the season and get drafts,
Yes.
which we're all kind of tired of.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I mean, even those of us that want the championship, and understand the steps to do it, it's kind of tiring. So.
It's old, right? It hurt to do it this year,
Yeah.
even in that mindset. So I'd like to do that. I don't know. We haven't really talked a whole lot of a possible Denny Advia playing the 2 next to Keontae. Something I've looked at recently, and the numbers that dude started to put up and stuff like that. I think he's ends up being an incredible running mate next to Keontae.
I'd love to pick him up.
A guy like that, and a team like Washington, who you talk about just being in purgatory, real no direction of a team. They really don't have much in young players. They really don't have much in draft picks. They don't really have a direction besides Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma. So you start to give them Clarkson to give them leadership, and Sexton and still pretty young, but kind of showed 20-something points per game scorer and maybe some draft pick or some draft picks or something like that in this year's draft, and that we whatever ends up happening, you could make that work and make that enticing enough to probably steal Denny Advia from that team.
It's interesting too because where they're lining up on the draft right now, I think they're in the number 2 spot. Who knows what happens when they do the lottery, right? And where that ends up, but it's looking like they're lining up to pick up the young Frenchman, kind of like how they got last year too. But the Risa Shea kid, and he's a 6'8", 6'9", kind of smooth operator that would be in contention with last year's pick and also Advia. So there's a chance that there's some overlapping situations and we can kind of help each other out on our rosters. Or maybe it ends up being another situation. But it would be great to see a move like that this offseason, whether we pick and take all 3 draft picks. It would be interesting to see. Or if we kind of move some of those, because if you take 3 draft picks 2 years in a row, you start to get a pretty full bench. You can still do the G League stuff, but it just starts to become pretty convoluted, kind of like we've seen OKC run into that situation, which is why Baisley landed in our lap, because OKC had so many young draft picks that they can't get everybody enough time and really enough proper assessment.
What's funny is if we take 1, 2, or 3 of those guys, we've got some guys kind of coming off our books this year that they will replace, right? You draft a guy who, even if you draft a guy, a top draft pick, with the idea of you're just going to play him in the G League all year because you've made a trade for a 2 or whatever, he kind of takes Taylor Horton-Tucker's spot, right? But he's playing in the G League for the most spot. Tucker's coming off the books. There's a couple more. I think Kira Lewis. Kira Lewis, is Yurtseven on his last year of his contract?
He got a 2-year. It's like the first part of the season. Yeah, and I'd have to see the others.
If you end up moving Clarkson and Sexton, that's 2 guys for probably just 1 guy back. So we could be opening up some bench spots. Samanic.
That's true. As much as I like Samanic early and wanted him to work out, it seems like it's kind of gone its way.
So we do kind of probably open up some slots for young players to be taking up a contract spot and then playing heavy G League minutes.
Get some 2-way minutes there. Yeah, that'll be interesting. So we've got draft end of June, Summer League in Salt Lake, July 8th through 10th. We want to go to that again.
Very excited for that.
Yeah, that was fun last year to see.
And this year could have a seriously fun team. Who knows what Keontae ends up playing. Whether he plays or not, though, Sensabaugh with what he's shown. Taylor Hendricks will come back. Kenny Lofton in the G League, or in the Summer League. And then whoever we end up drafting, it could be a fun freaking Summer League team that we put out there.
Yeah, that could be fun. And like I said, right now we're in the 8th spot. There's a whole bunch of names that are kind of floating in that area right now. This is the time of year where you kind of see names move. one name that's continually moved up the board from midpoint of the season on that nobody thought would be up in the 10 to 15 range is Dalton Connect. I don't know if you've seen this kid play with Tennessee. Interesting story. He actually started at a JC.
Okay.
And then went to Northern Colorado. And then through the transfer portal, went out to Tennessee for his final year and blew up. He's a kid that I believe they said when he graduated high school, he was 6'3", and now he's like 6'7", 6'8". So I've done a bunch of growing through college, and a great 3-level scorer, shooter. Defense leaves a little to be desired, but I don't know. There's a bunch of names floating in the range, from
I like Castle.
We've talked about Castle
I'm a big fan
times.
of Castle. His 3-point shooting is scary.
Mm-hmm.
But man, that dude as a playmaker, as a rebounder, as a defensive guy, as an athlete, I like. He kind of ticks a lot of the boxes of what I'm looking for. But
he does a lot of things well.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sold on him. I wouldn't be like horribly disappointed, but I'd be very happy if we drafted Castle.
Castle's in the mix there, even kind of at the 8 range. Matas Buzelis is in talks. Jacoby Walter, the other G League Ignite kid who Ron Holland. Who was initially kind of one of the top guys out there. I've kind of gone down the rabbit hole a little bit of Isaiah Collier out of USC. Had his ups and downs, had injuries. Just his ability to get in the paint and his ability for his playmaking. He's like Sensabaugh level or better at passing it and moving the ball around. So I think his upside, I think he'll struggle a little bit at first, but I think his upside is really high. Assuming character issues are all good, and all that stuff, you never know. But there's a lot of things.
We're in a good position, like we kind of said, to draft a guy with a high draft pick and literally not have him touch the court this season.
Mm-hmm.
To spend an entire season in the G League, but developing with us, it makes more sense. It didn't make a whole lot of sense this year with guys like Taylor Hendricks because we weren't trying to win.
Right.
That was kind of our frustration with Taylor Hendricks on that, of wanting to see more of him this season. Whereas next season we're trying to win, right? We should be trying to be a kind of a 4 to 7 range playoff team next year. That's kind of what I think our goal should be. And if that's the case, then we can draft a guy, but not really need to play him.
Yep, and not have to see them really blossom for 2-3 years down the road. It was interesting because start of the season, Vegas had us at 37.5 wins, right? We end up with 31. I think that we were kind of on pace before we made the trades to probably be around 500 ball.
Yeah, I would agree.
Is right in there. So I think that we would have beat the projection. I think that we would have beat last year's projections too if we didn't make those moves at the trade deadline. So, but we obviously stepped back, sacrificed wins to try and build for a little bit better future.
Which obviously 13-game losing streak, all that stuff sucked to watch. But if we come out next year and Taylor Hendricks looks like what he's shown he's developed, Sensabaugh, Keontae, and we start getting like legit playmaking and stuff out of Kenny Lofton off the bench, and these kind of things start to happen, those moves start to make sense for a long-term kind of process, right?
And that's without even getting into that. 2025 was where kind of a lot of the draft picks from the Mitchell and Gobert things really start to hit, right?
Keontae, I believe, is the only one that like draft pick wise we've had yet.
Right. And then both of them start to hit on the 2025 season. So, man, it's exciting to get to the off season, excited for the draft and the lottery and summer league. I'm stoked for that already, man. July 8th,
I'm very excited. We will be there, reporting on that. We plan on doing kind of maybe like once every like 2 weeks, maybe once every month as the season goes, discussing kind of the draft, free agency, those kind of things. So stay tuned for those things. One thing we didn't talk about that actually happened today is Avery Bradley. If you guys have noticed, he's been hanging around the team a lot since about December, and he was officially hired on as the vice president of player development for our team, to the point where he traveled with the team against the Rockets and was seen kind of coaching and working with Keontae. So it's cool because obviously we need player development. We need that stuff with where we're at. Avery Bradley's a really good kind of player, ex-player for that. But he's obviously seen as also kind of like an assistant coach in the sense of he can go out there and work with the players. And what a great guy to have working with Keontae George on understanding defensive aspects and these kind of things. And so that's super exciting to me to see. We're starting to get more bigger names, in my opinion, within our front office and our coaching staff and things like that, which I think helps bring bigger names here.
Yeah, that's important. Is the kind of the state's sports appearance is growing. Get an NHL team.
An NHL team next season.
Who knows about MLB around the corner? So I mean, these are all kind of important steps, and kind of putting on our big boy pants. And it would be great timing that as the state really starts to grow sports wise, that all of a sudden the Jazz kind of take the lead out in front and have a really strong team
100%, and
to be the showcase and the front trophy of the state.
And that's the thing is this podcast was always about, it's very, very heavily Jazz related. It's always been about a little bit more. And so as more teams come to Utah, it gives us an opportunity to kind of discuss other sports and other Utah teams that still connects with you guys within our audience, with being fans of the Jazz and being fans of Utah sports and stuff like that. So we'll kind of see as that happens and progresses.
But overall, it's been a fun year, the ups and downs. I mean, it's been exciting to watch the youngsters grow and building for the future. That's definitely been the whole theme of the year, right?
Yeah, 100%. We'll see Summer League next season. I think that's when we'll really start to see how successful this season actually was for the goals of this team. This has been fun, being able to kind of sit down and discuss all the games with you and with the fans, with other Jazz fans.
Yeah, we love that.
Hearing your guys' opinion on things in the comments and stuff has been super fun this year to kind of look at things in different aspects and hoping to continue to grow off of that. Like I said, off season we'll hit kind of certain points through the off season, and then next season really hit it heavy with hopefully a fun season.
At some point, you hope to see results of it, right? The results of your movements and your dealings.
Yep.
For sure. That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, overall. But thank you guys for coming out on all our videos and keep growing this. Let us know what you guys thought of the season, where we ended up. Were you happy? Were you disappointed? Let us know.
Absolutely. It's been fun.
Thanks, guys.